Ms. Garcia, I want to thank you so much for giving us a tour. If you don't mind, I'd like to ask you a few questions.
Of course.
Do you feel Orlando is an immigrant-friendly community?
Well, the question about like Orlando being a friendly community, like many of our communities do travel to Orlando, but mainly we're focused here in Apopka. Right now, they do, but at the same time, we're trying to make sure that they continue doing it. So we are actually right now working on something called the Trust Act for the police and to not collaborate with immigration agents. So because we want the community to feel like welcome in Orlando, and so we want for them to like be able to go there and not be discriminated because of the color of their skin or because something that just happened. So one of the things we've been working with that like almost a year already for this to happen, and I think gladly soon enough we're gonna see something. There's gonna be a place in the area of Orlando. They say that like the police is not gonna collaborate much, with immigration. So first, I mean, like the misconceptions, I will discuss it in a minute, but like just when it comes to referring to like the immigrant community, like we never use the word illegal. We always use undocumented because no human is illegal. The action is the part of it. So it's just in something is like, like when people cross the border, it's it's a civil offense, and they create like a big thing about just crossing the border. In reality, it's just a civil offense. It's like you're jaywalking. So it's something that like a lot of people have that misconception of it too, but also like there's so many myths about the immigrant community, like they don't pay taxes, like I always say the only thing that the United States let our undocumented immigrant do is pay their taxes. You cannot, like maybe you cannot like drive, you cannot work, like in anything, but you can pay taxes. Don't worry, you can pay taxes. So they created this thing called an IT number. And so what the IT number is kind of like a social security number, but it's not a social security number, it's mostly your tax number for you to pay taxes for it. And sometimes people might not know like they are able to like, get back, their taxes or anything like that. So all that money that I can give you more information goes to the Medicare, and so like where does that bunch of money goes to? Because actually they don't even get their full refund. They don't get anything like that need that they need to get, the money that they need to get. They either pay or they get like a little bit of money back, but they don't get the full refund. So where does that money go? Where does it go? So there are some facts that says that some of that goes to the Medicaid. There's a lot of things. Like there's a lot of wage theft. Like many like people, like especially people who work in construction, they work with contractors, and so sometimes they don't even get paid. We saw a lot of people like before, who were getting like who they didn't get paid, and they say, no, I'm not gonna pay you, like, and if you say something, we're gonna call the police or immigration on you, so it's just. And now, like, people are standing up more for themselves. I recently had a friend who I was like, she's like, Ellie, they're not paying me. And I was like, well, like, just tell me and we're going to do something. We're going to talk to this person, this contractor, like, because I'm behind on my rent, and so it's just like these things happen, so we want like, like anything, so to have, like for our community to give them what they have worked for. The thing is like immigration reform is a big thing. Immigration reform, it's like a dream, like to pass to legalize 11.5 million, undocumented immigrants, which are families and everything. So it's just that's the big goal that we want to see. But it's we've been fighting for this more than 20 years, so it's just like. It's an ongoing thing, and within that immigration reform, there are sub things like the DREAM Act, which is another one for undocumented students who came here when they were small. So that's another thing that we would like to see pass. We don't want DACA, which is the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, is it does give a work permit to these students. but it is not permanent because they have to be paying like almost $500 every 2 years. And so plus the fees for the lawyer, the mailing, so it's just like, and then plus if you have like 3 family members who are in the house who need to, that's a lot of money. So, and family reunification right now, what's happening at the border, I can give you right now, there are some bills in place, and we would love for like people to take action and say, we want this to happen because these kids are still not being reunited, and there's no plan. There's absolutely no plan of reuniting these families. These kids are going into court representing themselves, because there's no lawyers who are representing them, like kids who are like 5 years old to 13 years old. So it's just so many things that this administration is just like, it's like you can barely breathe because like one thing comes into another, the Muslim ban, it's just so many things that are happening at the same time, and you're like, where do I go? Like, who do we work with? So this, we have something called the Orlando Trust Coalition, where we come together, different organizations to work with immigrant issues. The Muslim ban, the TPS, the temporary protection status, that's another thing. There's another bill that I believe Nidia Velasquez for New York has put in the floor about to protect, because people who are from Haiti who have been here for like more than have been here 20 years, or like people from Honduras who have that temporary protection, and they already created their family in here, and they're on February is the deadline, and they have to leave. And so it's just like so many things that are happening. We need protection for these families too. So if it is appreciated of the work that that our undocumented families do, sometimes it's not, because they don't see that, like you talk about like having your fruits and vegetables on your table, but you don't think where they come from, or who harvests them, or who puts them, how much did they get paid. Immokalee, is one of the cities who really they get paid such a little money for tomatoes. Publix has one of them who don't want to pay 1 penny more for buckets. The buckets are really heavy, and it's just like they're not. When this is another one, so it's just like it's not like before that you can boycott. I was talking about boycott this too, because we are so used to commodities, like that we're gonna go, there. So easy to get it too. I mean, sometimes, but first as our culture, as the American culture, sometimes I don't feel they see that. I don't feel they go in the roots of where does this produce come from, who harvests this, So we always see what we have right now, but we don't see where it comes from. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What is your charity's long-term goals for helping immigrants get better paying jobs? It's collaboration with other organizations. We collaborate with Just with Justice, which their big point is to work for example, the $15, to be the minimum wage, and so collaboration in that, and empowerment of our community, because you cannot make a change if the people who are affected are not in the front lines of the movement. And so it's something that we always try to really reiterate that if our community is not empowered and it's not valued and it's not seen, we're not gonna see no change. But if our community it is empowered and they have a voice and they see that they can make this change, we can really push for better paying jobs, for them not to be discriminated. But it's not easy, it's a long fight. It's not something that we can wake up the next morning and say everything is nice now. It's just been doing this for almost 10 years, and it's just time after time. So, but it's little steps by little steps that you can see the change. One of the things is, as a social worker, it's not only one thing one issue that the community has, or one family. There's so many things that are happening with just one family. Education, poverty, and there's also more the fear of being separated. It's adding up to the discrimination, and that's you have to know how to work with one family, all of that. For example, the neighborhood that I was telling you that I go over there and do touring, I went with that idea, about talking about immigration. And at the end, many of these community members, what they wanted help was with touring for their kids. But then I discovered while touring the kids, there's, like health, like something that they are as affecting the community because they cannot get a surgery or they cannot get the medicines, because it's so expensive for them, People say, that's another misconception, you get healthcare for free. It's not true, like people had to wait like for 2 weeks or 3 weeks to get an appointment at the community clinic, so it's just so much. That's kind of, I think, the obstacle sometimes that I face. It's not that you're only working with one issue, but you're working with multiple issues. It's not only immigration, it's all those issues that affect that one person or that one family. One of the things that I hear the most, if only like what you were hearing with Mary, is that the advocacy that we need is related to transportation. If people had the transportation, if people had a driver's license and ID, they will feel like they have that sense of identity. Because our community sometimes feels that they don't have the sense of identity, or they feel invisible, and it's just like that fear too of like not being able to like drive my kid to the beach, drive my kid to the school, drive my kid for him to be engaged into society in here because my kid is a U.S. citizen. Like that's what I hear from others. Like I want to take my kid, I want my kid to live a normal life. But instead of that, I have to, like, every time I drive, they have to look behind me if there's no police or if there's police. So I think that's something that like relating to to transportation, and also ending detention centers. Like there's corporations who are like benefiting of this. Like corporations who will take advantage of the system as a business. It's a business. They're making business out of the immigrant community and coming together like business also with the Black community. It's just that those detention centers, like we always say, abolish ICE, Immigration Customs Enforcement. We need to take that away because in reality, who's paying for that? The people who are going in there who are mostly undocumented, and taxpayers are also, like it's just like, this is, like you're criminalizing people and putting them there because as much as they stay, as long as they stay in detention centers, they get more money, they earn more money. And so it's just like, and I can show you a video about that, and you can show it in your class, but it's transportation and ending, mass incarceration in detention centers, so.
Last question is, has any of the immigrants you've been in contact with ever stated that they personally feel targeted?
I think every time, we'll be talking about and even myself, it's just like I do feel targeted, as a person, as an immigrant myself, and as an undocumented, like as a dreamer, I do feel targeted, and because that's my life every day, and I fear of that every day, and so it's just something that that's my life, and it's just and I have to keep fighting because I am a target. And my community is a target too, and that's why I do this job because I see that every day. Like recently I got a call from a mother whose husband was already in Crummy, Miami detention center, just in 4 hours because he was picking up his brother, and it's like I don't know what to do. Like does he have any record or anything? Deportation is like no, it's clean. Like he was just picking up the brother. So it's just like. The color of the skin, everything that is targeted, if you don't know your rights, that's what we do here. If you don't, see what are your rights, because everybody has rights. And if you, the police you encounter, or the state patrol you encounter, or immigration that you encounter, if you don't know your rights, they're gonna take advantage of you, like they're, and especially. Another misconception, like if they don't want to learn English. We have a lot of classes and a lot of people who want to learn English, and if you don't know the language, they just feel like very afraid, because they don't know the language sometimes. So that's it's everyday target. It's not a day that you don't see that.
What could you say to social workers or to anybody who would want to go into this field moving forward, especially since it's seemingly becoming more dangerous? under conditions under our current administration. So what would you have to say to encourage somebody who might want to do this kind of work, but is kind of on the fence and fearful of the danger factor of it?
I think if you don't challenge yourself to take, that step towards it's everything, this is why I love the field of social work when it comes to the part advocacy. You're advocating for that community, but you also have to not only play as an advocate, but also as an organizer, for that community or for that family. So it's just, for me, when it comes to the immigrant community, something that is very important to do is always not think of you, of your, of what your perception or stereotypes are. Just really listen to the community and the stories and who they are, where they come from, because sometimes, yes, we do need the book, but you also need to immerse yourself of what's happening, in the community at that moment. And you get to learn a lot, and the most important, I think, what makes me, really enjoy it is because I see the small successes that people have, being able to go to college, kids, students who didn't thought they were going to be able to go to college because of their status, fighting for scholarships for these students, who are now finishing to become a teacher, so it's just all this stuff, that you see that success too, that, encourage me and pushes me more to say, there can be change, maybe I'm not, and you're not alone, there's a whole community, and building leaders in the community, because that's the most important, you're an advocate, but you're also empowering these new leaders for the community to take that stand, and to know that they're valuable. So if, if you're a social worker who wants to be involved in anything, you want to work with the homeless, that's also a big, but there's a lot of discrimination towards that too. There's a lot of stereotypes towards that, mental health too, health is just all over the place. So it's just everything is connected, when it comes to policy too. And this administration is getting worse with everything. And so, because we need to see that at the end of the day, we only have, you need to identify who is the community that you're working for, and who are you working also to persuade not to have anything that is against, that it will be oppressing our community. So something that I always say is, as social workers, we always say, we are the voice of the voiceless. But I have another saying. I'm yes, we are the voice of the voiceless. We have to remember that the voiceless also have a voice. Because, if you don't know, if you think that, if you are pity about this community, you're not going to see no change. And you're not going to empower that community. You're not going to empower that person. It's about you challenging that person and guiding that person. And it's helping advocating, but also knowing that they are valuable and they have a voice.